and a good morning to you. Morning, Spencer.
Good morning.
Got a great guest in studio. Donna's here from the Timberland Regional Library here in Shelton. Good morning.
Good morning.
Talking about some good topics here today. Of course, trl.org, a website where you can learn all sorts of information on just the different things going on around in the library, as well as options for you to learn about how you get a library card. It was, it's Library Month. Is that what it is?
It's National Library Card Month.
Library Card Month.
People more often to get library cards this month.
I keep my library card in my wallet just in case I'm ever at the library and need it, or am looking for something even just at home, because I know exactly where it is. I have like 3 things in my wallet. One's a library card. Use it quite often. And so the other one that people talk about a lot around this time are banned books. It's Banned Book Week.
Right.
This is always a topic of conversation, of course, is books that we've come to know and love over the years, for whatever reason, fallen out of favor in it's mostly classrooms across the country,
right,
and things like that. So you have a list of some of these banned books, or you just want to talk about how this happens? Or
Sure. I think most of them I see on the list tend to be books for children and teens. So I think we have parents who are concerned about their children reading about certain topics. I looked at 2018, what were the most challenged books. And, it could be on both sides of the political spectrum, but about 6 of the 11 from last year were about LGBTQ characters. People don't want their kids reading about characters in books that happen to be gay or transgender in a lot of these books. So that is what gets challenged the most.
So you mentioned now a couple times the word challenge. Talk to me about this.
So a lot of times books aren't actually removed from school. Sometimes they do get removed from the curriculum. But, a book is never actually censored and completely banned. In America, we have our First Amendment rights. People are allowed to read what they want. And at the library, we don't question why somebody's reading something. It may be because that is their belief system, and it may be because they just want to know the other side.
Sure.
And so we get asked sometimes to move things from the children's collection, and so we take a look at books. Anytime something's challenged, we have a process which we go through and review that book. We read it. We have a committee that gets together to take a look at that book, but we don't usually remove books from the collection.
Well, it drives me nuts when there's kind of a movement to ban like Huck Finn and these books that, if anything, they're a demonstration to remind people of the racism that existed. Still exists, but how bad it was not that long ago.
Right.
And yet people say, the N-word's in this book, we got to ban it, almost without even understanding what Mark Twain was doing with those books. They're classics, and it hurts me that a lot of young generations aren't even aware of what that book is because they won't teach it in the schools anymore. And
for me personally, it's a really good chance to talk to kids about these topics. I think it's much safer for a child to read about somebody who's suffering from a heroin addiction in a book and go through that process of thinking, what must that be like, than it would be for them to actually get that addiction themselves. So I think books make it safe for people to experience other people's lives. We talk about mirrors and windows sometimes, that a book can be a mirror that reflects you. And so there's this movement for multicultural books and books from so many different perspectives, so people can see themselves in books and imagine themselves as writers. We just had Tommy Orange, the Native American writer, speak at the Washington Center on Sunday, and he was talking about when he grew up, he never saw himself in books, and there were young people in the audience who did see themselves in his book, and so that was really powerful. But they can also be windows into other people's lives where you develop empathy for other people and experience what other people's lives must be like.
I did a search for banned and challenged books, and like some of the ones you mentioned too on the list, Great Gatsby, Catcher in the Rye are on here, Grapes of Wrath, To Kill a Mockingbird, Color Purple. There are Ulysses was banned back in the early 1900s at times. Beloved. Are there times where these books will be challenged and they'll be removed from the rolls, and then a few years later somebody goes, well, wait a second, what's happening here? Let's get this back in the curriculum, or once they're gone, for the most part, are they gone?
I mean, the books you've mentioned, we have all heard about, so they've come back. I think most things come back. Most things still exist. People can get their hands on them, even if they're not going to be taught as part of school curriculum. I don't know what's happening with the Mark Twain books now in schools. That's probably a better question for someone who teaches. But there are definitely movements where people are looking. People are looking at the Laura Ingalls Wilder books these days, which many find very beloved, and looking at them with a new eye, and are maybe not reading them to their children as much. But that's been the biggest conversation in the last year in the library
They
world.
took away an award, right? They renamed an award that was named after her name. And she's the inspiration for Little House on the Prairie and those books, the TV show.
Does a book have to be, or does the themes of the book have to be relevant to what's happening now for it to be challenged, or have you found that a book will be around for a long time and then all of a sudden somebody takes offense to it? I'm reminded of a story we reported on a couple weeks back where this principal or somebody in the school, or maybe it was a Catholic school or something, and he comes back and he says, oh my gosh, it's almost like he had never heard of these, but he says, oh my gosh, these Harry Potter books, if you read these books, there's actual incantations in there. You know, the parents of those kids were the ones who started reading at this time. I mean, these books have been around for a very long time.
Right.
Are most of these new books that come out that people go, well, there's no way we can let the kids read this, or is it some of these older
the
classics
list that I'm seeing from last year? Some of these are older books, but not that old, maybe 20 years. We have the Captain Underpants series. That's been around for a little while now.
Is that challenged?
Yeah, because it was perceived as encouraging disruptive behavior. And then there was also a same-sex couple in one of them. So there were a couple reasons that one's been challenged.
Are there different regions that tend to ban or challenge books over other regions?
I don't know. I mean, we have, differences in politics in every community, and so I think if you have some of these books are challenged from a very liberal point of view, and some are challenged from a conservative point of view. So I don't know who gets that power in a school district to pressure the school to take something away. It might just be one very loud voice, and it might be a group of people. But yeah, so I don't think that it matters that much. I mean, we get a handful, maybe a year of challenges in Timberland. We all get to see the letters and the response that we have to every once in a while something gets moved to a different collection, but I haven't seen anything actually removed from our library.
Do you have another question?
Well, I was just wondering, what kind of numbers would it take for a library to change a policy like that? Just like with a national company, when someone says we're going to boycott a certain Ford Motor Company because they did this or something, sometimes they'll change their policies, but if one or two people complain, obviously it's not a big enough thing, right? So how often have you seen what books are
I don't think that we could, honestly, because I have right here our Library Bill of Rights that's put out by the American Library Association, and that is something that's been adopted as one of our policies, and it's a policy of most public libraries. Article 3 is libraries should challenge censorship in the fulfillment of their responsibility to provide information and enlightenment. So if you just read this whole thing, there are 6 articles here. It's really, we collect everything of every point of view. We are a democracy. We have the First Amendment. We want people to understand both sides of an issue so they can make their own decision. And so the chances of us getting rid of something, we had a book that was very told from a very white supremacist point of view, and one of our selectors talked about why she collects, and she said it's important not to make an assumption why somebody's reading something. Maybe they just want to understand. Sometimes you want to understand the enemy, right? You want to understand the other side, and if people are asking for a book, then we will be more likely to buy it. But if people are challenging book, that's different. We're not actually likely to get rid of it.
And it seems to me, honestly, it's just kind of a mind your own business thing. Like, what is it to anybody what someone else is reading? Like, if you don't want your kids to read it, don't let them read it, or, manage your books on your Kindle or what you have in your own home library. But I've never understood why this push to keep other people from enjoying the book. It just seems kind of obsessive to me.
I think people read it and they think it didn't change them, but it would change other people.
Yeah.
I don't think I think books that I've read have solidified some of my ethics and values, but I don't think that they've ever tempted me to practice witchcraft or change my sexual orientation, or
right.
it just, they don't, but they do help me have empathy and understand that people's life experiences are different than mine. So other people don't see books that way. They see them as dangerous. So books are powerful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you have a section that you pull out every year of these books and kind of spotlight them with a headline? And do you see that readership of those books go up at that point?
Most of the time we put things on display. It brings attention to books and they'll get checked out more. Most libraries do a banned books display. We have a couple different displays going on right now, so we don't have one up this year. It's also Hispanic Heritage Month, and then we also had our Native Voices display with Tommy Orange coming to speak. So we don't really have room right now, but I've seen some really creative displays at libraries, talking, with big censored on them, or like looking like a criminal because you're reading a book. You could get your mugshot taken, and so we do highlight the fact that these books have been challenged. Right now, we do have the American Library Association suggested that we have kids write to authors whose books have been challenged and talk about the positive ways their books have impacted them, and so we have just a passive. Kids can come in and write to, the Captain Underpants author or some of these other authors, and talk to them about why they love their books, just to challenge some of the negativity they're getting.
TRL.org is the website. From there, you can get the links to the Shelton William G. Reed Library. It's looking good over there, too, with all the work finally completed. Great. And then the outside is looking sharp for the upcoming spring and summer. Donna, thanks for coming in and talking about this.